Texas and NEM3 and just things like that. So with that, he also brought on a special guest too. So if you want to intro him, but I will pass it off to Justin and Doug from here, and you guys can take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Apologize for the black screen. My computer has good audio, but no camera. So I'm using my phone here. So yeah, once again, it was awesome to talk with you guys. And Anthony, thanks for that, man. 2 weeks ago was rad. And there were just so many in-depth questions that we kind of wanted to have a chance to circle back. We'll give you guys a forum to really have a Q&A. What's on your mind about Franklin? Now you've had a couple weeks to kind of dive into the product. And on with me today is Douglas Amarhanow. He is the senior product developer at Franklin, and he has been there since the beginning, at least since I was there. He came in, he's the guy who taught me everything I know, and for countless year and a half. So I'm giving because would not be here without him. It is an absolute perfect. That's why I'm going to pass it over to Doug and let Doug go ahead and bring up our product presentation. That's a little deeper on the engineering, talks about kind of SLD slides and that kind of stuff. And then what I want to do is open up, since we've last spoken, instead of doing a Q&A at the end, I want to start with the Q&A at the beginning and address your guys' questions and what you're seeing out there in the marketplace.
Okay, well, thanks for having me on, everybody. Before we're getting started, just want to confirm this group is out of the, SoCal, Arizona, Mountain West market.
We're all over California, Colorado, Texas, yeah, okay. Utah. We cover Florida, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so just getting started. You want to speak about main panel upgrade avoidance?
Yeah, I thought that's what we wanted to do today, was to kind of help you guys understand how Franklin's going to help you avoid main panel upgrades, especially in markets like Texas and Florida, but also in California, right? The NEC code is moving over to 2020, which has some different distinctions. You're not just 120% rule all the time. There are additional protections. They want to make sure, that you're controlling the voltage going back to the grid, that you're not overdoing it, so to speak, so it doesn't become a danger to not only your home, but the neighbors, right? So what we're going to start with today is a little review on how to avoid main panel upgrades with your clients.
Great. And then we've already went over the company before, and I remember speaking to you guys, and just make sure that, speaking about AC coupling, this product is AC coupled. And to confirm, you can see my whole slideshow on the screen. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's AC coupled, which is a little bit different than having the PV go directly and connect to the battery, and that's kind of like the solar edge system. And AC coupling is great because you can have more power sources in terms of generators. I know a lot of people throughout the Southwest and Texas have generators, and starting next year, we're going to have vehicle to home chargers and a whole slew of other things. So AC coupling is great because it offers a lot of flexibility. These products are going to last a long time. They're 12-year warranty, and they'll very likely last beyond the 12 years. So who knows what the future is going to hold with 5 years from now, and you want to help the homeowner future-proof their home with the technology they're adding and make the most of their investment. So what's really nice is that we have this energy management system that's microprocessor based that allows monitoring and control of all the system components. 2 boxes on the wall. We have our A gate, which is where all the AC connections are made. Perfect controls for the NEM 3.0 people in California. Also great monitoring of generator plugins and stuff if you're in Texas. And that's one of the 2 boxes on the wall. And then the other box on the wall is the A Powur, and that's the battery. And so The system is as turnkey as possible, trying to make it, plug and play and simplify the installation to save your installation teams money, and also enable as much remote troubleshooting as possible to, for the duration of that 12-year relationship you have with the homeowner, you want to save yourself as much money as possible on avoiding truck rolls. And so within each battery cabinet, you have your battery cells, your battery inverter, and your battery management system. There is no field assembly required. Your installation crews will remark on how much it weighs. That's because it's 400 pounds. But if you use a Home Depot hand truck, you can move it pretty easily. I'm not the strongest guy in the world, and I can shimmy this thing around, no problem. And that's because it's lithium iron phosphate. And I'm sure you've heard the Enphase people speak about how wonderful lithium iron phosphate is. And I don't own a home, but if I did, I would only want lithium iron phosphate on there. Okay, and then there's a lot of stackable capacity on there. So if you do have a 2-battery installation, that's really where the whole home backup conversation begins. You can comfortably back up a central air conditioner without any with like indefinite usage. And then if you have a 4,000 or 6,000 square foot home, you can just add more batteries to that. And 5 kW continuous output with a 10 kW peak for 10 seconds. The usable capacity is 13.6, and it's oversized for that black start. If you have that hurricane churn through the Gulf Coast there, or even up into San Diego, like it did a couple weeks ago, and you have a multi-day outage, the system will preserve power and restart on its own. And currently the best warranty around, the 43 megawatt hours for SoCal. Okay, so getting into the main panel upgrade avoidance nuts and bolts. The big thing is that, those 100 amp services are kind of pain in the butt because people want EV chargers and more PV, and that's kind of restricting. So the idea is if you can relocate all your loads and have your 100 amp service act purely as a pass-through, and your loads get relocated to the backed up side or non-backed up side on the A gate, you can add more loads to the A gate and rely on that microprocessor there to make the decisions and balance the home power sources. That's as of right by National Electrical Code. And that's going to be true in California, Arizona, Utah, and Texas, or basically wherever you are, except for Florida at this point. And by the way, Florida will leapfrog into NEC 2020, I think this year. So they're going to go from behind the curve to ahead of the curve with the National Electrical Code. The idea is basically you can have all this additional functionality and have the microprocessor balance everything because now, it's the year 2020. We have, microprocessors and everything. So we're starting to rely on that instead of having to just rely on the circuit breakers to balance the load. And here is an example of a 100 amp service with a nice big 8 kW PV system and 2 batteries on there. And to give you a sense of what you would need in terms of balance of system and costing, you have your nice specialized 100 amp breaker here, and then that would flow into your A gate. And then the additional optional modules shown here are the smart circuits and the generators modules. So generator module allows you to connect any sort of 240 volt generator there. And then same thing with the smart circuits, you can connect and have control over those 2 smart circuits. It's kind of like a mini span panel. And so the other balance of system you need is this combiner panel. And then you basically have the full functionality of a 200 amp service on a 100 amp service, with avoiding the main panel upgrade costs and dealing with the utilities, et cetera, especially if you are located within 3 feet of the gas service. That's going to kind of freeze up everything if you're in California. You should definitely allocate some budget for these specialized breakers if you're going to do main panel upgrade avoidance. It's not every day that you see this kind of 4-pole 200 amp breaker where you have the 4 poles spanning there and contributing 200 amps out of that 100 amp service or 200 amp service. Then these Zinscos are also like notoriously bad panels, but you know there are solutions with 100 amp service breakers there.
And
It's
this
not-
is important, guys. Doug, sorry to interrupt. This is important because I know you cost out your jobs, and it's just always good to have a few $100s extra to accommodate this so you don't lose margin out of your commissions. With that being said, I'm about 99.9% positive the breaker cost has been included in the cost to you guys that you are sharing with the customer. So so save that extra $250 for the smart circuits. Yeah.
And by the way, I think, and I am assuming here, but I believe in California, the Zinsco is an automatic MPU for California.
Yes, they have been red tagged. You're correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Doug.
No, all good. And then just to confirm, we are all on NEC 2020, and so you can rely on the microprocessor. This is like the real nitty gritty of the code language, but it basically says we rely on the installer as a qualified professional to set the product up properly. And that, you know, if they make an error and they have to call us to help them adjust something remotely, that's not a problem either. We can do that remotely. So
You
really,
guys should know, yeah, 90% of our calls are handled remotely, guys. The fixes.
99%.
Wow, there we go. It's increased.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to save the installing contractor as much money as possible and time. So I'm sure you guys have heard of the 120% rule and like the headache that causes on sizing and stuff, and the restriction on the load and the PV and the batteries. That all goes away if you rely on the power control system and NEC 2020. So that's a big one that is going to keep your customers nice and happy and enable you to sell a larger system to them. And, you know, 100 amp service, while someone might say, you know, I have a modern home and I have a whole bunch of electronics and yada, yada, and I need 200 amp service. But, you know, in reality, most often their peak power consumption will be way less than 100 amps. Even on a 400 amp service, on like a 4,000 to 5,000 square foot home, they'll still be under 100 amps of power. Okay, and then we have these measuring points and then progressive load shifting. And so just kind of speaking to the various capability, it's a nice, easy commissioning time. You want to make sure your installing contractor feels comfortable with it. It's not like rocket science. Still shooting to have the commissioning done between 10 to 15 minutes. Doesn't change. And then basically this slide is talking about how we can do larger systems better than anybody else because you can, we have this 280 amp bus bar, which allows a lot more batteries to be tied in and a lot more solar to be tied in and a lot more load to be tied in. So if you do have a larger home and, you know, the person really does want it all, they have like, you know, 5 or 6 batteries, it's not a problem. You can, the energy management system will make everything run nice and smoothly. It's all UL certified. And then getting rid of that 120% rule and keeping magic in the box. Okay, here. So this is the example that I was looking for. This is probably like a classic GE panel that was in SoCal and it's 100 amp service. So basically the things that you need to be looking on the lookout for is that, you know, we won't be able to guarantee a main panel upgrade avoidance because it really comes down to the AHJ and the permitting at the end of the day. And things they typically look for is, you know, is the main panel like rusty and decrepit? And if it is, that's probably going to require a main panel upgrade. If it isn't and it's in good condition, you're probably okay. And do you have space on the wall to relocate the loads within a in a reasonable distance. Typically, that's going to be within 2 feet of that main panel. And then also the red listed brands like Dana mentioned, Zinsco or Federal Pacific, those are definitely no-nos. And then your ability to source that specialized breaker that we saw in the photo previously. And basically all you do is you have to pop out all the loads here. Yes, Anthony.
Do you guys happen to have a list of the red flagged panels? I know there's like 2 or 3 at least, but
Yeah, so far I found that it's Federal Pacific and Zinsco.
okay. I know for sure.
I have not heard a third one.
Okay. Okay.
And so they were relocating the if you have to relocate these loads and then use that specialized breaker. One thing to be on the lookout for if you are out doing a survey is make sure to capture the model and the type of breakers here, because that'll definitely help your design teams. Yep. And then so we have your this approved by all the utilities. Is there another Doug here, or did I raise my own hand? Yes, Doug. All right. If you are asking a question, I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I got it. All right, thank you. I am impressed by the span panel. Are you? And secondly, when you do get to be a homeowner, and you needed an upgrade, would you go span versus another type of MPU?
Yeah, span is definitely a nice product. I probably would not be. I'm a very budget conscious person, so I probably would not have a span panel. But you know, if you have if you can afford it, you should go for it.
Okay, great. That's the perfect answer, because a ton of people can afford it, and so I want it to be worth it for them. Thank you very much, Doug.
Certainly. Listen, when you look at the cost of what it costs to upgrade and put a new panel in, if you are faced with that decision, given the federal tax credit, given everything else that's in play, it makes sense to put in a span panel every time. Unless,
thank you, Justin. Excellent.
Yeah, just watch out for old people. They don't know how to run those things, and you're going to have customers with their lights off going like, how do I get it back on? So be warned. Yeah.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, and so this slide is just talking about how the permitting people, the AHJs, and the utilities are completely comfortable with this PCS and the main panel upgrade avoidance. It just needs to. The one thing that I've found to be the disconnect, if your plans do get kicked back, is that the plans did not document the loads being relocated and the PCS functionality. That's it. You just have to add the detail to the plan set. Okay, and so that's it on the main panel upgrade avoidance. We can get into system sizing now if you'd like to speak about that. Or do you have any other questions you want to speak about on main panel upgrade avoidance before we move on?
I just had a comment. I mean, I guess it should be good practice, but whenever we sign a deal, whether it be in person or via Zoom, try to get photos of the main breaker, main service panel, just kind of whatever information you can get. Just try to get those photos, just because it helps the handoff. It helps in a lot of ways. So try to get those photos, guys.
Exactly, like the faded the faded model numbers and stuff. Cool. And also breaker sizes too. It's always very helpful to understand if there is any like sneaky monster loads in there. Like, all right, are those really, is that 2 a 6, and are there double 60 amp breakers in there, or is it everything just a 20 amp breaker too? That makes it a lot easier.
Doug, while we have this pulled up, let's leave this on here for a second. I want you guys, if you're able to kind of peer in and see what those breaker sizes on there, you got to get real close to the screen. What you're going to see is a lot of 15 amps and a lot of 20 amps, right? Those are back up. You can back those up with a single battery. That's the good news, right? So as you scan that electrical panel, I see 15, 20 amp, 20 amp, 20 amp, 15, 15. No problem. I can relocate those loads. As long as I'm not running every single thing at the same time, the Franklin's going to be able to run that pretty much any of those loads on that bus bar. Now, what's also in that bus bar is a 50 amp breaker and another 50 amp breaker, right? What I can guess is those are probably an air conditioning unit or a well pump or something of a larger stature, right? Something that's going to
There's
pull more
AC
power.
right there on the panel.
Yep, exactly. So we're going to take that AC, we're going to land that on the smart circuits, and we know that that AC is, rather than just leaving it in the main panel and having that one random breaker that's in the main, we're going to bring that over to the smart circuit, stick it in there. Now, when they add another battery in the future, because you guys are great sales reps and you know, they come back in a few years. Now they're ready to go. They can run their AC on battery, no problem. But if there's an outage, it's going to turn that AC off so they don't fault their system. Real simple, real easy to use, and avoid headaches.
So Justin, with that said, like the in-phase battery, I think we're allowed 3 or 4 circuits on a 10K battery. Are we
Right.
limited to a number of circuits here with the Franklin?
I like how Justin just laughs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the output of the end phase is significantly smaller, right? You got 3.8 kilowatt or about 14 amps that you can run, you know, 15 amps of, so it's not going to run very much there. With that being said, the Franklin runs at a continuous of 21 amps and can throttle all the way up to 42 for 10 seconds. So there is a big difference. We are not so much limited to the amount of breakers as how much work your electrician wants to do. Right?
Can I ask you something, Justin?
Yeah.
Here's a 100 amp breaker. There's way over 300 amps that's of individual breakers in there. What's that about? Those add up to over 300 amps if you ran them all at the same time. How could they pull that off? What's the story behind it?
Yeah, 100, 120, 140, 160, 175, 225, 45. That's a good question. I don't know.
So there's like NEC 2020. I mean, NEC section 220, which is like your load calculations, and it'll give you like 1 watt or half a watt per square foot requirement for lighting and like bedroom receptacles, which are to charge your cell phone. And those are probably be on those 15 amp and 20 amp breakers. And in no way are you going to be able to like plug in enough stuff to overload a 15 amp breaker or a 20 amp breaker. That's just the smallest size available.
So there's a ton of headroom in these things. You're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
And going back to this thing, like most often the home, like while you may have 300 amps of summed breakers here, most often your home load is going to be down at like 40 amps.
Oh, okay. Oh, now I get that chart. Thank you.
Screenshot this chart, guys, because think about whole home backup power, right? When we're adding up the amperage of the continuous power on the batteries, right? I got 21 amps continuous that my Franklin can run before it's going to go, oh, this is too much, right? You can see here that most, like, and that gives me 42 amps of peak power on the surge. So consider that most homes, 98% of houses don't even hit 88. That means if you got 3 Franklins, you're running 63 amps continuous and 126 amps surge. Right, so you know that the system is going to be able to hit that, and if they are running all the time like that, they're probably growing marijuana. So, just being honest.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Or meth, one of the two.
Yeah. Or
Those are-
meth. Well, meth
Down
is
in
done on the
Modesto, that's what we
butane,
have.
right? Meth, the guys are running those butane stoves, so
Yeah.
not a whole lot of electricity, but yeah.
Cool. Okay, so
Sorry about that.
switch over to the sizing.
Yeah.
If you guys are cool with that.
Please.
Okay.
And we've got, let's see here, Doug, I think we have about
5 minutes.
Well, no, we have like more like 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Anthony?
Yeah,
This-
25 minutes or so.
Perfect. Perfect.
I think this presentation will probably take 10 to 15 minutes. So
Great.
the sizing of the system is very simple. It's the factors that are on this the screen right now. It's the PV to A power ratio. It just kind of means you can't connect a huge PV system to one battery. And then downstream loads, you want to keep those customers happy, give them enough power. And then air conditioners are typically the largest load in the home, so you got to make sure to keep those in mind. And then whether you have a 100 amp, 200 amp, or 400 amp service. And then we just looked at the stuff, so fast forward through there. Okay, so about 5 to 6 kW PV per A power for microinverters, and about 7.6 kW PV for string inverters. Within about a month, we're going to make it 7.6 kW for both micro and string. And then maintaining this PV to A power ratio helps make sure that, you know, if you do have an outage, the system is as stable as possible and performs, because the homeowner's paying quite a bit of money, and when they do have that hurricane come by or whatever else, you want it to be to perform. You know, if you do have too much PV production, the A gate will automatically turn off the PV during the outage if you can't net meter away the extra PV.
Do you guys understand that concept? Because what we do is we do islanding, right? That means that you guys are able to, the customer is able to use the solar to increase the output of the system. So you have both the output of the PV and the battery at the same time. This is a big advantage that we have over Tesla, because they have very restrictive rules on this. And so a lot of times, you know, end phase doesn't work very well with Tesla for islanding. It kind of just shuts off the PV in the middle of the day, because there's so much solar. The batteries are probably full. There's nowhere for that power to go. So again, we're referring to AC sizing, but what that means is if your system hits 8 kilowatt in the middle of the day on a single battery, we're going to shut the PV off so it doesn't overcharge the system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you're off grid, you don't have the luxury of net metering away the extra PV.
Exactly.
And then,
sorry for the interruption, Doug. Rainbows and unicorns.
No. Those are good points. And just so that the customer is like, hey, you know, well, if you turn off my PV, it's going to stay off the whole day. That's not going to be the case. The PV does get restarted every 20 minutes so that we can check the energy balance again. So, you know, there's that famous 11.4 kW solar edge inverter that, you know, people have, it's pretty popular. So people will install it, especially if you have net metering, and you're like, okay, I can just make a whole bunch of power and spin the meter backwards as much as possible. And then they want to add a one battery to it afterwards. And that's not going to be the best case scenario, because for most of the day, you're going to have too much PV production, because our charge rate is about 5 kW per A power, plus your home load, which may be an air conditioner or some small loads. So you may have a home load of about 6 or 7 kW. And then if your PV production is 11 kW and you're off grid, you have about 4 kW of too much power. And so the system is going to end up turning off that PV for a portion of the day. And you see that in this diagram on the right here. So the batteries act as a reservoir to soak up the load. You can see them charging to soak up the PV here, and then the PV production ramping up. Home loads are low, and someone's probably getting ready in the morning, and then they leave the house for a bit. The home loads are very low, and it's basically like, you know, it's the phantom load of the TV being turned off, and then the PV will remain off for a portion of the day and then restart later on. It restarts every 20 minutes. You can kind of see those ripples there. And yeah, so you do want to be mindful of those 7.6 kW sizing recommendations that we saw on the previous page. One thing that is nice about AC coupling, you can layer on all the power sources to each other. So while your one battery may be discharging at 5 kW, you can also add, 5 kWs or 7 kW PV and supply 12 kW of home power, which is a pretty good amount. And, potentially that vehicle to home in the next couple of years, that's a ridiculous amount of power to that one home. So it all adds up very quickly if you're using an AC coupled system. Then we do have this accessory. People do, especially in Texas, people do like 9 kW or 10 kW PV systems. And if you're primarily selling Enphase, you can couple that 9 kW PV system with one battery without an issue if you are using this AP box accessory. And looking at this diagram probably give you a better idea of what the AP box is. This is your system, your normal system. And you have the main panel flowing into the A gate here, and then your PV with your IQ combiner, and then this little module, the AP box stuck in here to help stabilize or turn off part of the PV if you are off grid and you're making too much power. So you'll stay within your balanced ratios here. It's a nice way to balance the system. That makes the most of your one battery system. Being realistic, 2 batteries is going to give you a great experience, but for most people, they'll purchase one battery because of economic reasons. Same thing happens with string inverters. I know people don't really sell string inverters too much anymore, but this is a 2 battery system up in Wisconsin. They have a 11.4 kW solar edge connected to the PV breaker. And then they want the availability of this additional 7.6 kW PV inverter sometimes. So, who knows what they're doing? Maybe they have they're making ceramics off grid or something, and they have a electric kiln going. And yeah, what people do in Wisconsin is, sometimes you need a lot of power. Additional low-cost options are to connect the PV instead of using the AP box to these non-backed up lugs. And there are ways around it. You're going to have to follow some wiring. It's a little bit more complicated in terms of wiring, but the cost is basically the same as using the AP box. It's actually a little bit cheaper than using the AP box if you don't want to purchase the AP box.
Yeah, there's more labor involved than the AP box, but you do have to put on a couple CTs, right? So we have to track that extra PV that's now going to the non-backed up lugs to make sure it's being tracked into the system. So you're probably looking at like $300 to $400 worth of cost to adjust an oversized system this way versus the $700 with the AP box that is extremely effective and is going to keep their system really working to its optimal situation. I always will recommend the AP box just because there's not a lot of things like it in the industry, and it's fantastic to have. If they're going to add on more solar in the future too, it'll make that really easy because you can bring, we have systems with Solar Edge and Enphase feeding into it, and you can bring both systems online or turn parts of the system offline as needed, depending on the flow of power.
Good summary. It's always great to assign
And
dollars.
Justin, just in case for either you or Doug, is it called out as an adder in SOLA?
It might be so far. I don't know. I think you just want to add the extra cost and make a note of it in your project is what I would recommend. I just had a meeting with Carrie yesterday, so we're working on getting that aligned, but I think right now, best bet you can do is just an explanation of your system when you turn it in, to let them know that you're using the AP box and you've included, you know, $700 for the adder or whatever.
That's a good point, Dana. I took a note. We'll follow up with Solo Team. Okay. And here's an example of that PV being fed into the non-backed up plugs there. You do also have the option to connect using the line side tap, but it is kind of dependent on the local HJ and whether they allow line side taps. Not all do. Yep. Okay. So yeah, that's basically it for the PV connections. Downstream loads, you do need to be mindful of the KW capacity. We just looked at that main panel with Justin and the breaker values. So same thing. Want to be mindful and take note of the larger than 20 amp circuit breakers.
Awesome.
Also, very helpful to get a copy of the utility bill if possible. By the large appliance usage factors versus bills, and see that, hey, this guy's actually using 100 kWh daily, which is pretty nuts, but that's what the utility bill says. Then if you really do want to protect yourself, doing the equipment matrix below so that the homeowner is like completely in the loop on the expectation of the backup level is very helpful too.
Yeah, right, guys, like this is, you know, selling batteries is not as easy as just necessarily going, yeah, here you go, right? This is what's going to work for you. For a lot of homeowners, everybody is unique. And what's happening right now in the current market, and where I think you guys are going to excel, is you guys are all solar nerds, solar geeks. You're thirsty for this knowledge. You want to be the best at your craft. I sense that from all of you. So this is something that as we move into this kind of new era, right? You're not just putting on a single, you know, a single dimension PV system that just goes full send and sends the power to the house and then goes back to the grid some days. That's a very easy calculation to make, right? Now that we're doing storage, you're building the infrastructure for these homes, for how they're going to exist for the next 15, 20 years. And so taking the extra step to, if nothing else, do a few of these and understand what a load calc looks like will really help you guys when you're in a home. Like I can do a load calc in about 1 minute with my brain at this point, but 2 years ago, this is all foreign to me, right? So just getting comfortable and operating, maybe build yourself a worksheet and kind of test, you know, what two ACs and a TV and all these different things, what they look like and what those load profiles look like, so that when you talk to the customers, you feel very confident in the answers that you're giving them. Would highly recommend if you can. In fact, Doug, do we have a load calc sheet that we've put together that we could maybe share with the Powur reps to practice on?
Sure, we can do that.
Cool. I'll get that up in the learning center for Powur with the team, probably next week, so you guys can go and pull that document and, you know, build it for your own house, right? Get an understanding.
Come back, Justin, and train us on this, man.
You guys know I'm here for you anytime. Anthony's got my number. So whenever you guys want, in fact, I tell you what, Anthony, why don't we set another training for like 3 weeks or 2 weeks? I'll get this done.
We have Power World next week, I think probably end of September, probably around 3-4 weeks or so from now. I think we have an opening. So I'll get some dates from Bo later and I'll message you.
Cool. You guys are gonna get sick of me. Sorry.
No problem. We need it. So
for sure. Doug, can I show them a little something on my screen here?
Sure.
I'm gonna pull them away since we only have a few more minutes. I promised to show you guys last time. I didn't get to really go into detail. Was the app, right? And how it's working and how you guys can program it for NEM for your customers. Are you guys seeing the Franklin app right now on your screen? Is that coming through, Doug?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Perfect. Awesome. So here you can see this is a live real system right now. right? So you guys can see the solar system, our house in Arkansas is producing 7.5 kilowatt. That's 7.6. Cloud just moved. But the home is only using 0.5 kilowatt, and this battery is full. Now, thankfully, this customer has 2 batteries. So if the home was to lose power right now, we would likely, given its load profile, be able to continue to charge the system. But with an AP box, it's going to bring that solar system down so it doesn't overcharge the system, overcharge everything. So this is just an example of when your house is using very little, but you're producing a lot, and you got no place for the power to go. What I really wanted to show you guys was time of use mode. Now, the customers in California are going to have a different looking app than this. But you guys, to show you what we can do for September. So we would go in here and we would program, if let's say I was in Southern California Edison or San Diego Gas and Electric, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to pick the time, right, that my peak rate is, and I'm going to adjust it, right? We're going to do this as on peak. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set it for 6 to 8 o'clock. And the reason I'm doing this only in September is why?
Big
Anybody?
buyback in September.
Buyback rates are higher in September.
Exactly. So I'm setting my system for self-consumption for 11 months, right? I want to use as much of the power as I produce. I'm not going to touch those months. That's going to be set. But here, let's say I live in Northern California and I'm in fire country. Is it worth it to me to completely drain my battery every night for an extra $5, $6? Probably not, right? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to program it so that I can save 30% of my battery state of charge, so that if something happens, it's going to keep that power in there. But I'm going to go no limit. I'm going to set it up to, but let's say I've got 2 batteries here. Again, I want to maintain as much of my charge as possible. So I'm going to send 5 kilowatt of the 10 kilowatt available. Or I can do full send until my battery gets to 30%, save it. Now I'm set up for NEM 3.0. And the customer will go in and you guys will program these based off the rates. For the customer will program it based off the rates available to them. Good news is if they are in San Diego or PG&E territory, these profiles have already been set for them. Okay, so it makes it really easy. And that this way the customer can go in, pick the month that they want to do that buyback, set it as such. Now I'm not going to save this on mine because it's Arkansas and it's a 1-in-1 net metering. But in that particular situation, now you know that, hey, once September comes, I know my battery is sending all that power back to the grid. Customers getting the maximum return that they want, that they feel comfortable with. Like if I was in San Diego, you never have power outages, right? Just set the state of charge to 0 and dump that whole entire thing. And this is where Franklin is going to significantly differentiate itself from Enphase. Because with Enphase, you're only looking at 9.1 kilowatt hour of usable power on the single battery. With Franklin, you get 13.6, which is technically 50% more power that you can now discharge, which means 50% higher discharge checks at the end of your credit at the end of the month. So with Enphase, with one battery, I can get 100. Let's say I could get $100 from Enphase. You're going to get $150 doing the same exact thing with Franklin. So just giving you guys a little bit of perspective, how the NEM 3.0 thing is going to work. They've made it very complicated, but really it's not, because you're in self-consumption mode all year. Use as much of the power as you possibly can, right? Try to be smart, know what you've got saved up, live within your means. You can pretty much zero out your bill besides the non-bypassable charges. However, in the September, again, that credit is going to be that's going to be a big determining factor on how much I pay in the winter when I don't have as much solar production and battery available to me. Another interesting fact, guys, is you can change your date for your true up bill. You can change it one time after the customer gets PTO. So let's say they get turned on to PTO in February, or they get turned on to PTO in October, right? They made this big, they don't get to use their credit until their very last month, and it can't be carried over year in, year out, right? They make let's say they make $1,000 off their battery in September, but then they didn't have a bill. They didn't be able to apply that to their winter credits, Maybe they'd already disseminated that. So what you're going to see is two different types of true up dates, likely sometime around July, which is going to be for people that have high summer usage. Excuse me, for high winter usage, and probably looking at a little bit later summer. So this is actually something, I had a really good call with y'all's respective leader, Ethan Miller, last week, where we were trying to figure out what is the ideal situation for a customer under NEM 3.0 for when they are going to, get that true up bill. When do they want their PTO time to start? And ideally, you would want your PTO to start right before September, right? Because now I can carry that credit all the way through the year for any energy I'm going to be using in winter, and I'll be able to start fresh the following year. Does that make sense to you guys?
It makes sense, but in PG&E in California, there is there's no more net metering. It's now net billing. So
Yes.
PG&E is on a monthly basis instead of annually.
Mhm.
So does that change the way you would set this?
Right.
Or
So
consider it?
PG&E is exactly. So it's exactly as you, well, you're gonna create enough credit, right, to manage. It might make sense to send it all. I still think you can adjust your true update though, because even though it's net billing, there's net credit. There's still a way for you to apply those, I believe. At least Southern California Edison and SDG and E has it. Doug, do we know if PG&E is allowing them to do that as well?
There's some sort of annual contract reset that
Yeah.
we select once. I'm not sure whether it's the true up or what it is. I have to remind myself of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's the true up. I think Sun Edison and SDGE do that, but not PG&E.
That's, of course they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, you know what, Dana, I'm gonna do a little digging. I'm gonna find out for you. Okay, I'll bring it to you for the next one. Or I'll hit you up offline when I find out today. As far as the off grid goes, this is one of my favorite things, guys, features about the Franklin. If you are doing backup power for people that really, they hate the utility, Texas, this is a really fun feature of the Franklin app. This allows you to go off grid, utilize only your batteries and your solar for power. What it's going to do is this is going to kill the relay basically back to the grid. So now you have no grid connection. You're running off batteries and powers. However, if your home's electric usage exceeds what your off-grid system can do, it's going to bring the grid back online. So you're not totally in the weeds or the woods and screwed, but you can basically kind of play off grid, right? Play pretend a little bit, and actually enjoy not having any kind of grid connection whatsoever. So this is an option for your clients. This has been a really big selling feature for those that are selling into Arizona and Texas, where the mentality is, I hate my utility. I don't, I want to be able to be as agnostic as possible. So it's technically illegal, right, to remove a grid connection from a home. That's because you have a federal easement that protects the utilities, infrastructure that's been installed on the property, all the way up to the electrical panel. So why Franklin is so popular with homeowners, you're essentially replacing that main panel that is monitored and managed and owned by the utility. You're replacing it with the A-gate, which now becomes its new service entrance. This is now the home base of your home's power, and the grid is just part of it, right? It's just one of the many tools you have to access power for your home.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So hopefully that helps you guys, go out into the market today, go out and maybe sell a Franklin, or if nothing else, get you a little confidence. The more you want one, the better you'll sell them, right? So I'm just trying to turn you guys into fans so that you can turn the rest of the world into fans.
What's the cost of a Franklin battery these days? I missed that last week.
What? I don't know what they are. I think it was like 14,000 in solo for the first one and second, and then they get
something like that.
Yeah, and then they get cheaper moving up the ladder as you go to 3 and 4 or 5 batteries. I can tell you guys this with a little bit of confidence. We did just deliver a price decrease on the product to Powur. yesterday. It's in legal, and you guys will get an announcement at Power World about it. So yeah, we got your backs. We're doing whatever we can to keep you competitive and, not have to put little fire nuggets on people's houses.
I have a quick question.
Awesome.
Yeah, Alan?
Yeah. I kind of brought this up last week about everything kind of being, with span and all of this, everything is going to technology now. And I'm just like a devil's advocate when it's coming to this kind of stuff, because to me, what happens is, I know you said that if not the grid goes down, but if the Wi-Fi or whatever goes down, then, this stuff doesn't work. And you said something about, you guys could use a hotspot, but what if the hotspot is not here? I mean, say it's an earthquake or something serious, this is something that has to be addressed, and maybe a hurricane and the Wi-Fi is not even working. So is that going to enable this entire system? Is your whole span system going to go down too if there's no Wi-Fi connection to talk to this? So how does
Alan,
that work?
let me help you here, brother. So
Yes.
actually, the hotspot is located in the A gate, right? So like, even if the whole world was to like go, I mean, we're talking, let's say there's a dinosaur attack in New York City and the Russians drop an EMP, right? So we got communications are down, AT&T's down, Verizon's down, there's no internet, there's no cell service. You can still take your phone, it's going to take that Bluetooth connection. You can go out to the hotspot of the A gate. It's going to connect to the A gate, and you can make changes to your system that way.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because that you didn't say that last time. That was, so you saying it's not even, you don't even need those towers that AT&T and everybody's using.
That's for warranty, right? We want to connect it every 30 days. But listen, if like we have an EMP and a dinosaur attack, we're not too worried about the warranty at this point.
Yes.
You're just trying to, you're eating stew as a collective group in the woods.
But now, in phase and all of those other solar areas, they would be down. Is that correct? I mean, basically, you wouldn't be able to.
Inevitably, I don't know if Solar Edge allows you to do that or not. I'm just going to assume they're going to break because they probably didn't think of that.
Right.
But I don't know. I can't speak to their product.
Right.
I know that has been something that people really like about ours.
Right.
Enphase, I believe, has that Bluetooth connectivity. That's why they're such a pain in the ass to commission. So I'd be surprised if Enphase didn't have the ability to control them from the phone as well. But I don't know what Solar Edge is doing. Listen, think of the Franklin. I know I said this last time. The Franklin is much more like a Rolex than an Apple Watch. Right? So an Apple Watch, you've got all this software and all this stuff in there, but the hardware components are like, they're all right? The software is what makes it special. And I think of like the Solar Edge or Stores or Enphase is the hardware is okay, right? But they've got pretty impressive software, but you got to have the right model. It's got to be updated or nothing works. Versus our system is very analog, right? It operates off this ATS that moves instantly between settings. And so when it switches, it's not a frequency thing. It's happens quick. You don't see the power go out in your house, but it operates in a much more analog form, which makes it a lot more reliable and a lot less tricky than, say, DC systems, like a Powerwall Plus. Like Tesla's like, the Powerwall 3 is coming. I'm like, great, it's still DC.
Right.
Nobody wants that on their house. So you still got to use a Tesla inverter. Yeah.
Would span work the same way? Because the whole system is kind of automated, right? Is that correct?
No, I mean, I think you got Bluetooth connectivity, so I think you would be able to use it if in the event that everything went out. But that would be a good question at Powerworld.
All right, that's a good selling point too, to know that, because that's a heck of a selling point, man. Because people are looking at disasters. We just look at everything as just working. You turn on your faucet and come off, you don't give it a second thought, but as soon as it doesn't come out, it's like, oh hell, what's going on?
It didn't pay the bill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so right. So that's what I get to. That's a heck of a selling point right there.
Awesome. Yeah. It's definitely it's an awesome thing to know your system will still work even when the internet is down.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So the span panel does have a hardwire connection to the Franklin system. So it will be able to communicate amongst the two systems, even if everything else is down and cell towers are down and stuff.
Yeah.
So you saying that won't interrupt that communication. So that's what I'm hearing. Your phone will keep functioning because you have your own tower, so to speak, or whatever. So you won't even have to worry about maybe the hotspot or nothing else. It would continue to communicate. Is that what I'm hearing?
A little bit. Like Justin said, and you said, Alan, the Franklin system does have its own hotspot, so you can, even like the homeowner in Hurricane Ian last September, he was in the middle of the hurricane. He could check that his system was working okay on his cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, you guys, if you haven't seen that video, let's see if I can pull this up and show it to you guys. There is a couple really great videos that launched recently. So we have a video of a customer who just went through the Fort Myers Hurricane Ian, talking about how his battery was completely underwater, up to like 30 inches of water, for over a day. And when he was able to continue to use the system, it remained sturdy, did not damage the system in any way. That's a great video to show your homeowners in Florida and in Texas, where you're dealing with crazy weather events. For customers in San Diego, we recently just launched a video, Ben Solins just did a review of the Franklin system in regards to his whole home power plant. If you guys don't know who Ben Solins is, he is the biggest Tesla fanboy of the last decade. So constantly releasing videos about the Powerwall Plus, and the new cars and all the stuff, right? Well, he like every other CEO in America, when they went to pick their batteries, they picked Franklin, right? And it's a great kind of a long-winded video where he talks about why he chose Franklin, why chemistry was important to him, safer, how it's going to last longer, more renewable, and also, how great the software works for him now in San Diego. And, he also makes a cool mention about, working with us as a company, because for us to say that our ears are open all the time, guys, like we're always listening for features, things you guys want to see in the battery. We have about as large as R&D team as Enphase does overseas. So if there's things you guys are looking to see, we want to hear that. If your homeowners are asking for things, we want to hear it, so that we can kind of dive in and see if it makes sense to make it part of our product profile. But if you haven't done a deep dive on YouTube, there is so much content. Joe Ordia does some great videos. But yeah, for those in Florida and Texas selling into those markets, have that storm video in your back pocket, please. It's really good. Doug, I know you got to bounce here. Do you guys have any more questions before we release you to the wolves of Power World next week?
Will you guys be at Power World?
Matthew Blakely, our SoCal rep's going to be there. It was a little too close to RE Plus for me. I'm trying to stay married, so.
Fair enough. Well, cool. Well, if no one else has any questions, then we could stop the meeting here, and then we'll have the recording up here in a week or so. And I thank you guys so much for your time. Doug, Justin, thank you. And Doug, I'll get back to you. I'll coordinate with Bo and figure out a date probably towards the end of September. We'll get you back on, brother.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
For your hard work.
We're going to
I'm sending you a box of hats, Anthony, Franklin hats.
Oh, let's do it. I love it. Yep.
Send me your address. I'll have them there next week.
I love it. Awesome.
Make sure we all get one, Anthony.
You need one, Dana. All right.
I'm having a good hair day, bro.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, you guys. Thank you so much.
Justin.
Appreciate you.